Omer A Rana, the strategist that's helped FinTech brands leap from 0 to 3 million using a single storytelling framework. He's the co-founder of Action Labs and a two-time Stevie Award winner. Can you walk me through the exact storytelling framework that took your client from 0 to 3 million?
One of the things that has always struck me when building a product, you can get hyper-fixated on the features. I don't think people care about features. They're looking for the solution, trying to tell that story. We take that solution and reverse it. What's your reason to care, to act, your story that will take you to the solution? If you just say, I've got a solution, everybody's used almost every word and burnt it. If you said, I've got the world's best, whatever, it doesn't matter. No one's going to pay attention to that. So those aren't ways that are going to be meaningful. When boarding a client, we really ask questions about why you're doing this. What's the problem you're trying to solve? We work mainly with corporates now. Understanding the passion of why someone's doing this in the beginning, connection to that problem. That's where you'll start to understand your story. If someone's just money, there's no story. And consumers are not going to connect with that. Think about your podcast. Why are you doing this? What are you serving in a meaningful way? It's easy to not be hard on yourself and just say, everyone's going to love it. No, they're not. That's the truth. If you can psychologically and emotionally connect with the problem and person, and you start to draw these persona maps, I think a lot of people see personas as demographics. And their brand, the way we do our brand workshops is storytelling. When we're on board to build, we do their branding. A lot of things aren't unique. You really need to think about your key selling point. If you can get to that point and have the people who are in the driving seat of the product explain to you in a very deep way about what this problem is that you're solving, it's a good starting point to connect your story. You've got to look at it over time. I think the challenge people have is they want to say everything in one go.
Yeah.
Whole story. I got a billboard. Let's say all the words. All the words. That doesn't work. But the easiest way to, again, to say that is, how much do you pay attention to when you see some content, you see a post? If you start putting in multiple mixed messages, that comes to story. Story, look at it over time. We did stuff like this, and we have our own framework that I developed with my management team on how we measure. Because the other part of story is, for a lot of people, it's new to go this direction. But then they're like, okay, how do I know it's working? The infamous question in growth. And performance marketing, we can tell where every dollar's going. You can't really tell, not in that way. Especially latest things with apps, so it says ask app not to track, and who wants to be tracked? The robot presses no. So we created our own models on how we can judge individual story narrative through the funnel. I'm probably saying this in a bit of a messy way as I'm imagining my infrastructure. The other part I think that people don't often appreciate is what's narrative. Like what re-interview that we do if you join our consultancy. Narrative, like for you, have you done much launches or advertising?
I've done some. For me, because I've done public speaking in terms of narrative. So what I did was have that hero's journey where the hero goes. There's an introduction, a problem, and a resolution. Would that be something you're talking about?
You're talking about arcs of a story.
Yeah.
The way I put it to my team is, you've got things you say. If I said, just do it, you're in my mind, right? But in your head, did you think just do it? Or there was a story happening in your head?
Maybe the brand story of Nike.
Yeah, you feel.
Yeah.
I look at narrative like that. You've got to build this narrative through different ways, but you need to know your narrative. We already have a deep understanding of the problem we're trying to solve. So now we're going to build a narrative, and depending on the product, it'll either be for a year or 6 months. I wouldn't go lower than that. A way to understand success of your narrative. I want people, this is the story I want them telling themselves. It was a FinTech. That problem was cross-border payments. Build this narrative. If you were to meet an ordinary person on the street and they were to explain it to someone, this is for me is the measure, the top to the bottom, is I've done all my journeys over time, and this is how people are now explaining this. I built my narrative, touch points over time. I've got this pricing model, broken complex message into smaller messages. I've got that big story, much more. It's all the building little moments over time. People to understand X, go hard on that one thing. Build Y, they'll understand that. Next, we'll to be able to elevate a pitch as well. When you launch, no one's going to say, we've got 6 months to build narrative. All I need is now. So you have to be able to condense it down into what is that value proposition for immediate use, but you have to into your arc of your story as your narrative is being developed through your solution. And I think a lot of people don't take that approach. They're just like, here's product, here's key selling points, but you'll end up fighting the price wars. I don't like price wars. I don't think that's advertising. You're just business led. I like market led things where you're thinking consumer. And this is how we guide our clients. We just did in 8 months, 8 million in 1 year for someone. Yeah, we were all extraordinarily happy. And the costs of acquisition of the customer was incredibly low, like really, really, really low. It was all high fives. Using this framework, instead of just saying, here's the thing, why should you care? At the beginning, it's that discomfort founders and corporates and decision makers have and saying, there's not the new that's against each other. They're like, no, I've ticked my box. And it's like, no, here's my revenue marketing story in our workshops. We'll bring in key stakeholders from multi-divisions. So when I'm talking to you at the first workshop, everyone's all very, we don't need to do this. By the end of the first workshop and when we're leading into the second and third, they've all starting to attach to what this looks like. They can see why it benefits them, how it takes part with the bigger picture, because you can have a CEO with a vision, but you've got people below that person who are going to implement that vision collaboratively and in a direction. It'll happen very slowly. Things will be very disjointed, and that ultimately hits your revenue at the bottom of the funnel. Because if the teams connect and pivot and grow, and you're matching it to your narrative, your roadmap, your storytelling. So if you do all of these things, it works. There's no magic bullet in growth. And people are like, oh yeah, make this go viral, that'll work. Sure, if you're going to put all your bets on one thing going viral, you get a massive spike and then a drop. I don't like to do business that way. There's no reason to take, well, let's play this one thing will work when there are tried and tested frameworks. We're not the only people, others have their own ways. Just think about it very logically. You just put yourself in the shoe of the consumer, of the buyer, whatever you're selling. Cars, watch, doesn't matter. You're able to reverse this and really understand what people want to know. Like, I'm sure ads on for something, a product you've recently bought, and they're like, oh, I've got this question, or I don't know this, or I don't know this. So just don't start story arcs and start thinking about the bottom, think about the top, and then start building in between what that looks like to collaborate, make a plan. Does that make sense?
I feel like the way you're doing launches, it almost feels like filmmaking.
I'm in my studio at the moment. Parts of our business, this might be why we see the world this way, is we have a data division I'm head of that does performance marketing, data analysis, forecasting. We have our own data tools built in-house. We have a creative division. Don't have a marketing division. We have a strategy and they control marketing. There's a head of strategy. And we have a filmmaking business. We shoot ads and we do all these things. So we do events. So it's all in-house teams. But because everyone's forced to collaborate, we're a very flat organization, attracts subject matter experts, and you have to be a polymath to get D or a C level. You have to, otherwise you can't accelerate in our organization. We have problems because when we're recruiting, people don't look for polymaths for senior level in an advertising agency or a consulting company. And you like, they say, oh, you've got 7 years experience, but you're not a polymath. You're a single subject matter expert in one thing. You have a challenging time because you enter our organization a couple of rungs below where you were somewhere else. Yeah, so if you take that kind of mindset, but the film team, they understand data, they understand funnel metrics. So if you go to one of my directors and some shoot an ad, they'll start talking about, okay, which part of the funnel are you aiming at? Which part of your narrative? But they'll understand you've got to build this in because the head of strategy will push this at the beginning. So we start doing these things and all these touch points. Look at it that way. It is a film, it is a story. And over time, measure what that impact is. Your story doing well. If you're pricing it properly, you should know. You can't really be real time unless in-house clients rarely give you the bottom revenue funnel. You just be on actions. The data will tell you so much. Everybody likes to say data and why more recently. But when you start questioning people, what are you doing with data? What did it inform? I've seen companies produce beautiful presentations. Look at these millions and billions of impressions and think, what did you do with that? How do you think? Have you worked at it? Have you ever seen someone produce these big metrics? What did you learn from it? What decision was made thereafter? One of my team was talking about a mid-funnel action and looking at some metrics with the data team, how to increase the ratio from the previous step to the next step, which is creating a lot of content to move that part framed under the master narrative. I think if you think about it that way, that's no magic bullet. It's just a very clear vision of how you do it. It works.
You've talked about the client you brought from 0 to 8 million. Can you tell us more, or is there confidentiality?
I can speak more generally. It's FinTech. I think FinTech is easier to go to millions.
Yeah.
When I say it's a lot easier, I mean in terms of there is no lead time on product. You look at e-commerce, you have to source, you have to buy, there's timelines, there's warehousing. The investment in not just financially, but in time. And a lot of businesses you can't go like on that path. It's just the nature of their business or what they're selling. So I really like FinTech because it can bump. And as long as their infrastructure is right, they can handle growth. If you're doing finance, you have to worry about your loan book and NPL. In FinTechs, we've done millions and we're not the only ones. It's very satisfying, not from a revenue point of view, from a health point of view, because part of the joy is sharing information to help. And when it comes to FinTechs, they have a problem they were trying to solve. They're like, there was a person out there who had a problem. So we get chances to help the new generation take better control, because I think a lot of parts of the world don't teach people this at a young age. Were you taught in school finance?
No.
Like, it's wild, man. And none of us are
ridiculous.
I look at that as an opportunity. Like your podcast, you get an opportunity to share ideas people benefit from. I look at the work with our clients from onboarding. Who is this for? Who are you trying to help that person? You see things scale well, and it's a good feeling too as well. And sometimes, often at the start as well, we'll make sure that their dev teams and my teams as well are interacting directly with customers. We're listening to their feedback about what's happening. We hear rich stories. Not all are happy. Financing will change your life. Having money or not money, and understanding how to use money is fundamental. So it's a privilege to be part of that.
Definitely. FinTech can be very rewarding. A lot of our founders are actually very scrappy solopreneurs. Would you say they could benefit from using this mindset of storytelling as well?
Yeah, don't think there's a brand that wouldn't benefit. Now we're more focused on FinTech, but we've done FMCG, luxury hospitality, tourism. We work with governments a lot. It comes down to the same thing. It's understanding that problem solution, but building it under a narrative. And these little extra steps change the impact. It doesn't matter what you're selling.
Yeah.
Unless the person created the thing just because, why not? And then you're in a bit of a challenge. Most people don't. Most people do have a true meaning of why they've done it. So I would say, firstly, don't be a solopreneur. It's not a good idea to do it. In Silicon Valley as well, if you try to get funding and you're one person, you're likely to get it. They'll tell you, go find a co-founder. And the emotional cost of starting a company is extraordinarily high. I cannot begin to describe how painful, truly painful it is to start a business. Lots of people say this, not just me. It's very emotional, it's painful, and the cost, things you don't realize at the time, you're paying a price. Everything comes with a price.
Yeah, definitely.
It's bundle.
Every founder I've spoken to had to go through something emotionally to get to where they are, as well as the operational parts to be successful. There definitely is a price to success. Having someone there is always good.
Yeah. I think if you need to work with people who are better than you, I try to be the dumbest person in the room. If I'm achieving that going well, the more you can surround yourself with smarter people.
Yeah.
One of my colleagues, head of strategy, and my wife, who's the CEO, she's a creative genius. Visual creativity lacks. You wouldn't pick anything I would do visually. All of the founding team that we've all together 8 years. We've been together a long time. It's very complementary. They're all polymaths. Everyone in the leadership here, as I said before, but they're all complementary. It's the combination of skills, even if you've got a couple of things different, like I'm sure you've got a number of meaningful skills behind you. And if someone's just got one skill set, it brings something different to the table.
What do you think most founders get wrong about storytelling?
They focus on themselves. No, look at my app. It's so cool. Look at this feature. I think it's just very business-led. I think you go market-led. And I think the challenge would be, if you're not from this world of behavior psychology, based advertising. How are you going to know how to do this? You don't know what you don't know. If you're doing something, you're like, this feels right. How would you know not to? So many people, like myself, I'm making giant claims. Look how amazing I am. Everybody's, look how amazing I am. I really hate saying it in meetings, interviews, sales pitch. Here's my sales pitch, just like everybody else's. We're all going to say beautiful words and say nice things that make us sound clever and look good.
Yeah.
Challenge yourself is the biggest mistake. Being afraid to speak to customers. Speak to your customers and tell them your story. Look at their reaction. Rejection doesn't feel easy for anybody. It's a tough moment, but if you don't do that, you will probably spend a lot of money before you discover what you could have for free if you just had a few embarrassing weeks.
So failure is in the process of figuring things out.
I don't know anyone who's an entrepreneur. You must have failed a bunch of times. I don't know anyone who's an entrepreneur who hasn't.
Yeah, definitely. People who are afraid of failure it's very hard to start something. Definitely.
Yeah. I watch a lot of content like yourself. And the problem I've always had because I train public speakers, CEOs, and everything sounds like buzzwords now. Being afraid of failure. What does that mean? If you hadn't lived that journey, there was a memory happening of but if you'd never done it before, what's your reference point of being afraid of failure? Like, it's very hard to explain how to attach to that. And I think these are the things when I say challenge yourself. When you're thinking an idea, okay, you've got your story, don't be afraid of failure. What does it mean? How would you convey that in a way someone could truly understand?
I think for someone to understand how failure is and how to overcome it, it would be best to give my own example so people can have that emotional connection and think of their own story.
That's one of the first things that I actually tell people is tell stories. Yeah. Stories. It's a really wonderful way to connect. Yeah. Unfortunately, when you're doing advertising, you don't have time to tell a long story. I think I'm quite older than you, but about 15 years ago, you would have 30 seconds to convey a message. 10 years ago, it cut down and we all know where we are now. But I think it's 1.5 seconds you have now to grab someone. And there's some really creative ways that you're seeing people do it these days. But again, if you don't challenge yourself, no, my story is beautiful. It's going to be hit in 1.5 seconds. If it's not. Or you can pray with founders, don't be afraid of failure with all these beautiful buzzwords. You don't truly live what that means. I don't think your success can be as fast as it possibly could if you did. And I think the cost of what you're doing will be higher than if you took an alternate approach.
You've worked across the GCC, Europe, and with big names. How does storytelling change across cultures?
It's wildly interesting. I would say it's not just that it changes across cultures over time. I was saying about 1.5 seconds for attention. Which platform for which country? In the Philippines, Facebook is still quite popular.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Asia, if you're not online, where are you? Yeah. But if you said someone in Europe, like what's like Middle East, like what's gigantic company. It's about cultural differences. There are very obvious cultural differences, but at the same time, there's some things that are true just because you're a human being. Everybody cares about themselves. Why wouldn't you? You're browsing online for you. You're thinking about solutions for you.
Yeah.
If you take the things that are true, more often there are things that make us all as human beings one. There are more things that make us the same than make us different. I think human being is a human being. This is one of the reasons we run a flat organization. You don't inherit power as a human. You will respect everybody. So I would say the cultural differences will come down to tone, ideas of how you execute. It would be more on execution level. But when you're talking about how people behave, how a Gen Z person is broadly is very similar. How a millennial is broadly similar. The challenges we've all faced, unless you're in a particular country that had some very unique circumstances, of which if you can understand the socioeconomics of a country, and the Gulf is a great place to think about socioeconomics.
If someone watching has zero revenue, what's the first story they should tell to get their first customer?
It depends, but if you've got no revenue, assuming minimum viable product is actually working, I would go out, walk in the mall, go up to businesses, tell them your story. Write down after every conversation exactly what happened, what hit, what didn't, and just keep doing it. Don't stop. If you did that, you'd probably get through. I've done this. We set up a company in a place we weren't there. Me and my colleague, we just walked into businesses and said, here's our story. This is what we can do. And we just kept listening to the feedback. And then by the 10th one, we faced a lot of rejection. And we learned to refine it. And I think you need to, as fast as possible, refine it. And who you best to refine it against is potential customers. So if you've got no revenue, you've got nothing out there, don't start building more features. You don't need to spend money. You just go speak to potential customers. People will give you their time. Out of 100 tries, you'll get probably 10 conversations. 10 conversations will help you no end. And it will help you refine to what those, if you've, with the way the internet works now, you could probably create easy artwork as well. Show people. What do you think? You don't need money to do this. You just have to speak to people. If you've got money, pay people to do it for you. Founders should be doing this themselves. The more you disconnect yourself from the customer, not good.
Speaking to customers, would you also extend this to not automating until you have found your story? Because now there's all these AI tools. Everyone's jumping to build a product. What do you recommend with that?
So there was an old phrase when it came to development. I think this is even actually might be from when I was a schoolboy when it came to sell sheets. Garbage in, garbage out. Maybe, but again, if you're going to pray for this magic bullet solution, maybe you'll hit the magic bullet. I haven't seen anyone hit the magic bullet. I've seen a lot of people lose a lot of money when they take that approach, but it does happen from time to time. It was cute, and lots of people think, oh yeah, I'll find one thing. No, you don't. If you're praying for one thing to turn around your business, you might be praying for a while.
Walk outside and speak to customers.
Imagine if you did that tomorrow. I don't know your days, but you could do 20 businesses, walked around, spoke to people. Out of those, I don't know your close rate, but let's say 20%. If you did that every day for a month, you would see growth and learn things you can use.
I think some aspiring founders, they're afraid to do that because I think they're afraid to take the most important step, validating the business. They're afraid because one, they believe that they're right. And and they're very sure that they are right.
Yes.
And two, they're afraid to speak to people and invalidate the fact that they think they are right. So what would you say to them? Yeah.
Last year, it was impressing upon me the importance of meditation. I've been doing it for years, but I'm not so regular with it. But I think it's really hard to attach to fear. Everybody's fear comes from a different place. Some people it comes from childhood. I think a lot of people like blaming things. And I think if you can cross the line of stopping blaming others for the problems in your life, and you can just be like, you know what, maybe it's me. If I can't have my back and I can't accept who I am, I'm not going to go into healthy places. So if you cross that line of just to accept you can be wrong and the problems are your fault, I think that's the first step. But it's so hard to attach to that. Well, I accept that I'm wrong. I've said the words now, and now we're all cool. What does it mean for you? Can you cast your mind back to when you were afraid and you first took your big leap? Do you remember?
For me?
Yeah.
I've tried so many things. And what really got me over putting myself out there and doing things is like realizing that, so what if I fail? Some people will think I'm a failure. So what? It's just a momentary thing. And also like, I feel like the more often I've tried something and failed, and multiple things, it made me like, really, this is not a big deal. I get over it faster. And then I also have this process, which I learned from one of the founders who spoke to me. He was like, after a failure, have a system to make sure it doesn't happen again. I've been doing that since I spoke to him. And my life has been so much better.
Amazing. My co-founder says we're allowed to be sad for a day. You get one day to be sad about something. Afterwards, ultimately what you're saying is you've got to have your own back. I can do this because no one's going to come to you and give you stuff. Not really. Maybe it happens, but that's that magic bullet approach. I don't like that. I don't think it's helpful. So yeah, you've got to confront the truth of who you are. You're right about not being afraid of failure. But I think that for people who haven't taken that step, it sounds like you're supposed to be like, oh, let me go do stuff. It doesn't mean being afraid of failure. From me, others, not being afraid of failure isn't that I'm not afraid in that way. I think accepting failure will occur. And what do I take from that failure? It's accepting who I am and that I'm an imperfect being. Can you imagine how boring and lonely it would be to be perfect?
It's horrible.
Yeah, so I think if you can accept that things will occur, someone much smarter than me said, accept what you can't change and change what you can't accept. I try to keep that as a guide. Can I accept this or I can't accept this? Like a way I measure even failure on a lot of different things.
I think it's to accept that, but also like it also gives you agency that you can also change what you can't accept. So it's not just about I accept everything. Everything is okay. Yeah. But no, it's also what can I do about it? And I think what can I do about this? And I think one of the phrases I've learned over the years has helped me is like, how can I make this the best thing that's ever happened to me? Which I learned from Mark Manson. So it's not from me, but yeah, I think I've been using that for any failure and growing from it.
Yeah, that's healthy. It's a mark to show where you are, that you have given yourself tools. These tools only work if you practice them.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Definitely.
everyone's saying, I can roll out a bunch of phrases, but you clearly can attach that because when you're speaking about it, you're quite emotional. Like,
Yeah.
I can see you're remembering moments where you're using these things. That's when they become powerful. When you can read a book, but like, do stuff, speak to people, find
Yeah.
out answers, momentum.
Definitely. This is a great point to finish because we covered so much storytelling and ending with how to accept yourself and these emotional things to overcome as a founder. They're more important than the strategy because they come before the strategy.
Yeah, you see so many people fail because often people fail the first crack.
Mm.
Yeah, it's that. I'm a super believer on the emotional cost of this. Nail that. You'll give yourself a good framework for the other bits.
Thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing your insights with us.
No, my pleasure.
Thank you.